we're kind of color coordinated?
Exactly. I know. I got the email.
Yes. So, The Good Mother, okay, so the order of the story was a surprise. The backstory, there's a special touch because you're leaving the audience with questions about the beginning of Brian until towards the end we get a little more in depth on where it all started when it comes to drug addiction.
Yeah, that was really part of the intention was there's a lot of movies about drug addiction. There's a lot of movies um that kind of cover that part of it. And I thought, especially with what we were sort of facing with opioid epidemic and with fentanyl, especially, was the sort of trail of lives that those things left in their wake, and the reality, the immediate reality of parents, or loved ones or people, um, and and the difficulty to sort of put a beginning or an ending on that in the processing of it anyways. And so in a way, I think Madison and I were really interested in this idea of a character who's been mourning the death of their son since before they were actually dead, and this sort of the paralysis of that, of just waiting for the horrible thing to come, the horrible thing coming. And then, I think sometimes we like to, there's one way of doing this, which is just the pure sort of galvanized good mother, if you will, who's going to go out there. But I think that the reality is a lot more complicated. There's a lot more blame that's put on the self. There's a lot more, sort of, a lot of parents have the same patterns as their kids and forms of addiction and things like that. So it was really not wanting to make it so neat that you can just, especially sort of at the beginning, say like, oh, the mother feels this way because this happened. But it's a little bit more of you're meeting a character who's frozen, who can't take a step forward really into the new world because of how awful it would be. So she's really stuck in her space. And I think that in certain ways, that's an uncomfortable place to put a mother character. I think that we want to feel this sort of like perpetual bond and that thing, which is ultimately, I think, what she is getting back to throughout the film, but I think has sort of shut herself down from feeling everything. So her sort of journey is one of somebody out of paralysis, out of being sort of frozen by all of everything that's awful in the world, everything that's awful that's happened to her. And hopefully, by the end, being able to take a step forward, even if that's not into a better world. Paralysis and movement and living your life doesn't mean that things are going to be easier or better or whatever, but it means accepting that and making decisions on how you're going to react to it. And so this idea of the sort of junkie's girlfriend, or however you would put that, as this character who's this sort of like catalyzing agent for her to kind of to see her son in a different perspective, besides just the story that she's been telling herself and the sort of cautionary tale. We wanted to avoid that side of sort of the cautionary tale part of these drug stories because, yeah, there's enough of those.
I agree. But can we talk a little bit about Hilary stepping into this mother? She's phenomenal in every film she works on.
Yeah.
So what was the experience of having her on this film?
It's amazing. It's like it's such a gift, and she's really not afraid to go there, and in a sense that, like, there was the decision not to keep this character really restrained and frozen in herself and sort of slowly come out. And that's not an easy choice to make, because that you're dealing immediately with the expectations of the audience of like, well, I want to see her react the way I want my mother to react, or the way I want somebody else's mother to react. And to not do that instead is brave. And I think is because she understood what we were doing and what the character was, and that this This was trying to go a little bit deeper into that the real complexities of loss and of not coming to terms with it, and of your own feelings of responsibility, and the way that we can shut ourselves off, especially when we're tough, badass, people. You can sort of just, until the world doesn't allow you to anymore, so it's crazy. You're like watching one of the greatest who's ever done it. She's worked with the best people ever, so she has this like complete understanding of every single department and who does what. And she's, you can just listen to her tell stories forever, but then also the second she's on, it's like amazing. You're just watching, you have to like remember to call cut, because you're like, what's she doing next?
Speaking of reactions, I think my facial reaction was bigger than her reaction when she finds out about, the scene on the train.
Yeah.
What was it like filming that scene?
That was like the hardest day of shooting I've ever had. That was a really difficult day, because we did that whole end piece, like from them getting into the parking lot, all the train stuff on the train, all that in a day, like half a day, and then we had 2 hours on the train to shoot that actual final whole sequence. And we were down 2 crew members, 2 very important ones. And it was actually a day where I was trying to film them. We're going backwards. We're doing those things. And I started getting incredibly like motion sick, because I'm looking at 2 screens, their performances, and we're like barreling, down the thing. And I was like, okay, I have to lay down, because otherwise I'm going to be sick. And it was just taking, so I was like, Hilary and Madison, I was like, to them, I was like, I'm going to be laying down here with the little monitor. You need to just go in there and get these shots. So it was funny. She almost like, put on her sort of like director hat there. She was like, all right, it was so cool to see it, because the time was ticking down. But that was a scene that we always loved, because it was like, what do you do? What can you say? Especially like you're there, you want to say a million things, there's not, it's not that thing. If she's not there, she has nothing to say, is she has everything to say. And she doesn't even know where to begin or what question to ask, you know what I mean? Yeah, that was so much fun. And also you can just watch Hilary processing things, and it's like so intriguing. And then it really puts it on Jack there, because it's the one moment where Jack gets to drop the sort of mask for the audience, and for himself also. So I think it's really I think his performance there is beautiful. It's sort of like begging to his mom, without doing it that much.
Now, can we talk a little bit about Olivia? I mean, she does great when it comes to these characters that are in trouble. Can you talk a little bit about her performance and signing her on?
Olivia's been signed on to this project for like 7 years, because we first tried making it like 7 years ago. She's a dear friend, and she's just incredible. And I met her around the time of Muriel and the Dying Girl, her film she made that won Sundance, and I've just always been a huge fan. And she was, the only one that was on the project for that whole time. And so getting to finally, bring her to Albany, which is our hometown, and these are the locations we shot our, movies in when we were 9 and 10 years old. So to bring her to like my neighborhood in that way, was really cool. Like obviously like bringing Hilary and Jack, like that was fun, amazing, because you're like, but Olivia was also like, you've known me for a long time, so it's like, this is where I came. And then working with her, she's excellent, she's precise, she's like, she just wants to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, and and she loves it. She loves the work. So that's just a pleasure. And she does play a lot of like messed up or darker characters, but I actually think in this one she has like a levity to her that's like really fun and kind of enjoyable to be around, and can kind of cut through shit, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed her character as Paige because she's the only one that pretty much with Marissa is kind of like, you're not alone going through this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, and I think that Marissa has there's a certain comfort that she has in her identity of going through it alone. You know what I mean? Not that it's helping her in any way, but when you sort of have like worn down these paths of how you do something and how you cope, like addiction, you know, that becomes the easiest way to do it. And you have to really consciously break that pattern. Um, and I think that that's also an awareness maybe that Paige has that Marissa doesn't, you know.
Very gutsy character.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned right now about filming in your hometown. Why did you pick your hometown?
So me and Madison, who wrote the movie together, we grew up making movies, like when we were like 8 and 9, and I mean throughout that time. And our first film, As You Are, is set in our hometown. So for us, there's like it's kind of a trilogy of movies we're planning that are all not connected. But it in a way, you know, Albany is the capital of New York State, and in a way, it felt like both the architecture of the place, which is these like crazy brutalist towers that hang over these, you know, um, pretty poor neighborhoods. There's an immediate sort of visual collision um, between the people and the institutions that are sort of like ruling over the people. So, you know, in a movie that we considered primarily kind of a noir, for us, that gave a really compelling aesthetic that kind of told the larger story. And also we work with this group, Youth FX, that's a youth film program in downtown Albany, in that neighborhood. And we shot our first film. They came and were a part of it because we, you know, have known Bowen, who started that program, since he taught us how to edit when we were 8. And on our first film, a bunch of these kids came and worked on it as PAs and stuff. And now, 6 years later, one of them was a department head. Taufik Abijako did all of our wardrobe. And he, you know, so part of it is also like, we like being a part of that community. We like being able to shoot movies in places and with people who normally don't see big movies, shoot big movies. This is a tier 1 movie. It's a very cheap film, but that's really exciting. And for us, that's sort of like, you never know. Movies are so difficult to make. They're no matter what you have, no matter the quality of it, no matter anything, it's really difficult. The hours are crazy. And for us, there's a part of it when you get to do it with people who are really young and excited and appreciate the sort of magic of being on a film set. Especially when you've known them since they were infants, you know, there's something that's really like magical about that and really exciting, especially to see how many of those kids now are like really, really good filmmakers and winning festivals. And, you know, so there was a moment where, you know, they asked if we could shoot the movie somewhere else. And for us, it was, you know, we respectfully will make this movie any other time, you know. But no, so it was very, very important for us.
How being in a territory that you're very familiar to.
Yeah, I mean, literally all of those locations were places we hung out as kids. The houses we grew up are all in the movie. You can see them like in front of our school, where all the parks we would play in. Yeah, it was a trip. It was really, that part is crazy because you're like pulling up to a house I used to babysit kids in with Hilary Swank and Olivia Cooke, and then like someone's jumping out of the window and running through the park that you used to like go hang out in as a kid. That part was like, you know, one of those things that I'll hold, you know, in my heart forever.
Well, Miles, thank you for talking to me about A Good Mother. Just, you know, when it comes to films, the indie films, to me, have a bigger heart. So
Yeah.
I I admire the fact that you're sticking to what you want to do, your ground, and why not just take it back home?
Yeah, exactly.